Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. We're just moments away from starting this evening. Please get comfy in your seats. Get ready to go. Okay. Well, good evening, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. How wonderful to be able to come together here in marvelous Marrakesh in pursuit of connections, reflections, and actions that matter for Africa. I'm Georgia Calvin-Smith, and it is such a pleasure to be your host for the Mo Ibrahim Foundation's leadership ceremony to kick off the 2025 Ibrahim Governance Weekend in style and substance. So tonight and for the next 3 days, we'll be working together on some of the challenges today facing Africa and leadership, both within and beyond the continent. As ever, it is not always going to be easygoing, but what a value ever is. So we welcome the discussion, dialogue, and even the disagreement that will inevitably be shaken up as we learn from and support all of you passionate people here today, grittily moving obstacles out of Africa's way. Now, tomorrow, many of the conversations at the Ibrahim Forum will tackle a factor crucial to the continent's fortunes: finance. Now, this year's theme is financing the Africa we want. It's a simple idea underpinning a complex landscape, because vision only goes so far, sadly. Whatever way you look at it, from energy and healthcare to jobs, digitalization and infrastructure, we cannot deliver on our continent's priorities without locking down Africa's ability to finance its own future on its own terms. But before we move on, a few housekeeping points. There are no fire or emergency alarms scheduled for today, so if an emergency does happen, please stay calm and head to the nearest exit. Members of our events team will be there to guide you safely out of the building. And also, when it comes to translation, you should have picked up your headsets on your way in. English is on channel 1, French on channel 2, and Arabic on channel 3. So back to tonight's proceedings. I am so enormously excited and privileged to be here with you in Marrakesh as we head into the next few days. An immense thank you to the Kingdom of Morocco for its hospitality, for receiving us all in such splendor, and for hosting the Ibrahim Governance Weekend in this historic and vibrant city of Marrakesh. And when something's nice, you do it twice. We are thrilled to be back, as it's actually the second time that we've been able to hold IGW in Marrakesh, which is a first for the event. So again, a huge thank you to the Kingdom of Morocco from all of us here tonight. I think that's a good moment because, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you all now to rise for the royal message from His Majesty King Mohammed VI of Morocco, which will be delivered by the royal advisor to the King, His Excellency André Azoulay.
Prières et saluts sur le prophète, sa famille, ses compagnons. Monsieur le Président de la Fondation Mo Ibrahim, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, il nous plaît de vous adresser ce message à l'occasion de l'édition 2025 du Ibrahim Governance Weekend qui tient ses assises sous notre haut patronage à Marrakech, en présence d'un aréopage d'illustres personnalités du monde, de la politique, de l'économie,
from the fields of politics and economics and from civil society, who have come together to discuss a very important topic, namely financing development in Africa.
Cette rencontre offre une occasion privilégiée
This prestigious gathering is a precious opportunity to deepen the debate on a never-relevant issue. It makes it possible to engage collective action to shape the future of a rising African continent
de nos peuples.
and to live up to the legitimate aspirations of our peoples.
Saluer les efforts constants de Monsieur Mo Ibrahim.
In this regard,
De sa fondation qui
I cannot but commend Mr. Mohammed Ibrahim and his foundation's tireless efforts. Their endeavors contribute significantly to enriching the debate on African development and promoting the reflection on innovative solutions to address major current and future challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, our continent is suffering from the knock-on effects of multidimensional global crises, which continue to deepen disparities and gaps between countries and regions. This situation undermines the effectiveness of efforts to achieve the sustainable development goals by 2030. It also adversely affects the achievement of our vision for a rich, prosperous Africa. However, these momentary challenges should in no way dampen our common determination to move forward.
Notre continent doit les transformer en opportunités de développement et de croissance.
Our continent should therefore
valoriser
turn these challenges into opportunities
faire prévaloir sa vision
for development and growth, unlock its potential,
et prendre
and impose its own vision for the achievement of development.
Mais il ne fait aucun doute que
Africa
sans un
should seek
financement
local solutions to its problems and be the sole master of its destiny. Needless to say, without adequate financing tailored to Africa's specific needs, our continent will not be able to implement its reforms, nor carry out its development projects in an optimal way. Therefore, mobilizing funds is essential to achieve sustainable, inclusive growth. It is also a prerequisite for the structural transformation of African economies. That said, I would like to underscore 4 key pillars for the achievement of comprehensive, sustainable development in Africa.
Le changement de paradigme dans le financement du
First, changing the model used for development financing. Our continent needs to mobilize greater domestic resources, implement structural reforms to strengthen the macroeconomic framework, promote innovative development financing mechanisms,
de la diaspora africaine.
And effectively leverage remittances from African communities abroad. Indeed, Africa can no longer rely solely on public spending for development or debt-generating external financing. Second, creating an institutional, economic, and social environment conducive to development, to offer investment and entrepreneurship incentives, and therefore create job opportunities. We need to accelerate the reforms relating to good governance in particular, improve the business climate, enhance transparency, protect investors, stamp out corruption, and make the justice system more ethical. Third, increasing and stimulating intra-African trade. The economic integration of the African continent is no longer just an option. It has become an absolute necessity in a globalized world in which Africa's share of global trade does not exceed 3%. As for intra-African trade, it represents 16% of the continent's total volume of trade, compared to 60% for Europe and 50% for Asia. The launch of the African Continental Free Trade Area can offer good opportunities to boost intra-African trade and serve as a catalyst for growth and sustainable development on the continent. It can contribute to greater industrialization on the continent, enhance the resilience of African economies, and help attract investments. Fourth, increasing the value of the continent's abundant natural resources. Since Africa accounts for 40% of the world's reserves of raw materials and for 30% of the planet's strategic minerals, in addition to having significant mineral, energy, water, agricultural, and biological resources, we can no longer allow our continent to be a mere exporter of raw materials. The time has come for Africa to reap the benefits of its enormous potential, capabilities, and wealth. Now is the time to create added value and generate new revenues in order to finance development. Achieving this goal, however, hinges on the continent's ability to invest in valorizing its natural resources domestically. Set up regional value chains, encourage industrialization, create jobs, and enhance regional and sub-regional integration. Ladies and gentlemen, Morocco has managed to strengthen its role as a strategic catalyst for South-South partnerships and to serve as a natural bridge between the continent's various regions and the countries of the South. This has led it to launch concrete, large-scale projects that will lead to a sustainable transformation of the continent's economic and social landscape. This is the approach we are applying through major continental projects, such as the African Atlantic Gas Pipeline. It is a concrete example of integrated economic development. In the same vein, and consistent with an approach based on solidarity and the pursuit of shared development, I recently launched the Atlantic Initiative to facilitate Sahel countries' access to the Atlantic Ocean. The aim is to establish a solid foundation for a new model of regional cooperation. We have also launched the Rabat Atlantic African States process, which is intended to benefit all parties in the region. In addition, the experience Morocco has accumulated in several strategic sectors, such as renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, financial services, and transport infrastructure, constitutes an important foundation to build on in order to develop trade relations and promote partnerships at the continental level. Being fully aware of the paramount importance of financing, Morocco has adopted a strategic approach by putting in place innovative financial mechanisms and ensuring the effective mobilization of domestic resources. In this regard, the Mohammed VI Investment Fund stands out as a genuine financial stimulus tool that can boost private investment, support small and medium-sized enterprises, promote technological innovation, and stimulate sustainable development. Casablanca Finance City has also succeeded in establishing itself as a major regional financial hub, attracting significant financial flows to our continent. Ladies and gentlemen, development cannot be decreed. It is achieved through the adoption of ambitious policies, investment in human capital, and sound economic governance. Therefore, joint efforts must be made at the national, regional, and global levels to bridge the gap in development financing and contribute to building the emerging Africa we all yearn for. Nevertheless, and as the deadline for the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals draws near, it is imperative now, not sometime in the future, to put the issue of financing Africa's development front and center on the international agenda. Reducing the high interest rates imposed on African countries in international financial markets, ensuring access to concessional financing and low-interest loans, strengthening the capacity of regional financial institutions to support African economies, improving Africa's representation within the international financial system, taking into account Africa's diversity and reducing fees on remittances from the African communities abroad are legitimate demands for which appropriate answers and solutions should be found. In this regard, the fourth International Conference on Financing for Development, to be held in Seville at the end of this month, is a good opportunity for African countries to keep advocating for urgent solutions to these demands. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that financing development in Africa requires collective action, combining regional and international cooperation efforts. The critical debate on reforming the international financial system should be based on a multilateral approach in which African countries should be fully involved. Quite often, these countries are marginalized when the rules of the global monetary and financial system are formulated or laid down. This necessary reform should, above all, ensure that Africa's legitimate representation in international bodies is enhanced, as this would enable African stakeholders to address the challenges they are facing effectively and envision potential solutions to them. In conclusion, I wish to stress that financing development in Africa remains a major challenge which requires innovative, solidarity-based solutions tailored to the continent's realities. The Kingdom of Morocco will keep up its resolute action to fulfill its duty and mobilize resources successfully, strengthen strategic partnerships, and promote effective financial mechanisms in keeping with its constructive vision of South-South. Cooperation in accordance with its unwavering commitment to achieving comprehensive, sustainable development for the benefit of African peoples. Thank you for your attention. I wish your conference every success. And peace be upon you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I will ask you to not leave us quite so soon. First of all, before we move on, I just want to say thank you so much for getting us all in what I believe is the right headspace, setting out the stakes and the strategies that we're going to need if we're going to build the Africa that I know that we all want to see. But before also thanking you for the Kingdom of Morocco's commitment to good governance, I will ask you to stay with us so that we can have the official photo that will open tonight's event. But in order to do so, it's also my great honor to welcome a familiar face and a man behind tonight's gathering. As well as being a tireless advocate for good governance and a steadfast believer in Africa's potential, he's put in place so many tangible frameworks that are supporting actions that are driving the continent forward. Now, please join me in welcoming the founder and chair of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, Dr. Mo Ibrahim. I got too excited.
Your Excellencies, brothers and sisters, good evening and welcome to beautiful Marrakesh for our governance weekend. But let me start by expressing our gratitude for His Majesty King Mohammed VI, the government of Morocco, well, this is the government of Morocco sitting here actually, the Wali and the people of Morocco for their warm welcome. It is very rare actually we can come again to the same city because we try to move to different African countries. But people fell in love with Marrakesh and here we are, so thank you for having us. We have, we're holding our governance weekend in a very strange circumstances. The world looks very strange and uncertain, things changing around us so fast. And the world as we know it is no longer there. We woke up and it's different. We can see the assault and on the global order, on the global institutions, the rule of law, international rule of law. Is it there anymore? It is just all uncertain. The future of all these cherished institutions are all uncertain. I'm glad to have our sister here today from the United Nations, but I'm not sure your organization will continue in 5 years' time, will be there, or it's just we're moving into very uncharted waters, and we need really to start to figure out what we're going to do as Africans under these circumstances. The problem is when the rule of jungle prevails, the weak need to take cover. So these are alarm bells for us. We need to take cover, guys, because it is getting difficult for all of us without rule of law. Africa today, and I'll be very frank, Africa today really is not in a nice place. We have more armed conflicts than any time in our history. More armed conflict than any time in our history, everywhere. In my country, Sudan, we have a crazy, stupid war between power-hungry generals, 12 million people displaced, 2 million people migrated to neighboring countries, famine, cholera now. I think Tedros is here. You can tell us what was happening in health crisis in Sudan. And this is more than what's happening in Gaza and Ukraine put together. It is a major disaster. And you ask why? Why we're having this? What is the objective? What is the end of this? What is for? And Sudan is not only place. We have so many conflicts everywhere. We had armed conflicts still have in Somalia, we have in Ethiopia, we have in the Sahel, we can keep counting. And why the poor are destroying whatever little infrastructure they have? Why? Are we crazy? Why are we doing this to ourselves? I think the first thing we need really in this continent is peace and security. Without peace and security, we cannot really move forward. We need to find a way. Yes. We are happy everywhere to go. We are African, we are Africa. What Africa? Which Africa, guys? What Africa are talking about? We are killing each other. What is this? What all these conflicts? We cannot, I mean, Musa Faki, when you're running the African Union, you're running from one place to another. There's a military coup, there's war here. I mean, it's an awful. I know you look much better now that you left your job. It is really, even here, we're in Morocco, a great African and Arab country. Next door, Algeria, great African and Arab country. The border is closed. How many years? What's happening? Why you guys are not able to talk to resolve the issues? So I think, and I'm sorry, we need to find a solution first to this important. I know tomorrow our people will be talking about financing Africa, which is important, all that stuff. But I'm telling you, what's the point of financing you if you're going to destroy it and kill each other? You're destroying whatever bridges, roads, infrastructure you have. What is the point? We need peace and security here, and we need to find a way to resolve these issues. This is my message today. I'm not going to talk about anything else other than that. And in that spirit of peace and security, we need to learn also to live with others. And we stop persecuting, our political opponents and from here, I really ask for the release of President Bazoum in Niger. It's just unacceptable. The man is put in inhuman condition for 2 years now, and nobody able to see him. What crime has he, what did he do to deserve that? And where are the voices of African leaders? Where are the voice of the African Union? Your guys, your silence is deafening. It's sad. We need to stand up and ask really for that. Soon we're going to have elections in, among many other places, Tanzania. And I ask President Samia, please be a little bit more gentle with your opposition. It's not nice what is happening to some of the opposition figures here. We say to President Museveni, please rein in your son. I think Bobby Wine is here, who is the leader of the opposition. Are you here, Bobby, or they killed you before you come here? He's here, yeah. Please talk to him to hear what harassment those guys are subjected to. Why? They are citizens of your country. They are not your enemy. And if the people I don't know if Bobby Wine will be a good president or not. I don't know. But if the people of Uganda liked him, and so be it. Okay, what's the big deal? We really need to look at ourselves first. We are very quick to complain about imperialism and colonialism and the other guys and what they're doing for us and what you. Okay, all that's fine. But please look into a mirror and say, is that nice what you see, guys? It's not nice, I'm telling you. So please, we need to get our act together and we need to move forward. I'm sorry, it is not a nice statement, but it's the truth. And you guys need to hear the truth. Thank you. I'm going to stop here because I was told I only have 8 minutes and I need to obey orders. Our next item is a little bit unusual. Actually, we want to celebrate the life of President Horst Köhler. If you don't know President Horst Köhler was the President of the Federal Republic of Germany. But for us, more important, who is member of our board and member of our prize committee. He had a wonderful career, managing director of World Bank, president of Germany. But for us, he was a strong German voice for Africa. He's a man who always told it, said it as it is. And we loved him and we respected him for that. I tell you a story. This is not in the script here. But I was not close to him until he joined us and we started to. And one day I asked him, I said, my friend, you had some great position, you know, well, IMF, blah, blah. Then you became president of Germany, which is a wonderful job because you have this amazing castle and you don't have nothing to do, you know? You hold dinners and you do, you know, it is a really, I will do it. I mean, it's a lovely job. And I said, Horst, why did you resign? And he said to me, actually, I was just making a speech, I think it was a university or published something, and I said, Germany is a great exporting nation. Germany is a great industrial powerhouse, and this is it. And I found it terrible that we are unable to protect our shipping. I thought that was at the height of the Somali pirates. And we had to rely on a host of other countries to protect our ships. And I said, that is not right. Germany should be able to protect their shipping routes. And he said, you would not imagine the firestorm in Germany. Warmongers were back in the 30s. The Germans can be rather ridiculous, actually, sometimes. And he said, I'm not going to take this crap. I resigned. And it was interesting to watch later on Chancellor Schmidt going to the parliament and said, oh, what a moment. 100 billion euro for defense. Excuse me, where you guys have you been when our friend Köhler was talking about these issues? This is a far-sighted leader whom we miss really, unfortunately. I thought it's only appropriate to celebrate. I mean, we lost him a few months ago, and I thought it's appropriate to play a video. Horst Köhler delivered what I think the best speech, leadership speech we ever had in our governance weeks. We have been doing this for 20 years. And interestingly, he delivered his speech about 7 or 8 years ago here in Marrakesh. We were in Palmyra, and he delivered the speech there. And I think that is a speech so valid today. So please join me to listen to this wonderful man, what he had to say. And thank you.
Dear Mo, Excellencies, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, I've been asked to share a few thoughts on political leadership tonight. When I was preparing my remarks, I couldn't help but feel a bit daunted by this task. First, because I know there are so many people in this room who certainly don't need any lecture on leadership from me. People I admire for their courage and their convictions, and I'm grateful that I can be here with you today. Second, because aren't these strange times to talk about leadership? On the one hand, in many parts of the world, there is an unprecedented contempt for leaders and the so-called elites. On the other hand, we witness across cultures a renewed fascination for authoritarianism. The seductive idea of a leader as a Führer, a strong man who can solve all the problems if only given all the power. Actually, in Germany, we still have difficulties using the German word for leader, Führer, because it was the title of a man who led the world into the darkest years of human history. So these are ambivalent times for the concept of leadership. Neither the vilification nor the glorification of leaders will help us to solve the gigantic challenges of our present. But both these extremes point us to a crack in the fundaments of our societies. The growing disregard for trust as the basis for the relationships between leaders and their own citizens, as well as between leaders of different countries. For some strange reason, the issue of trust is often considered as a soft issue in politics, as opposed to hard issues such as money or power or military strength. Yet, as an economist, I know that the very foundation on which our economies are built is trust. I can go to the bookstore and buy a book with a 20-euro bill, which is nothing else but a worthless piece of paper. But because my bookseller trusts that he, in turn, will be able to buy his wife a nice bouquet of flowers with that paper, he accepts my payment. The very moment people would lose trust in the value of money, the money actually loses that value. Why do we expect things to be different in our political systems? They too cannot survive if people do not trust. Trust that leaders want the best for their country, not best for their cronies. Trust that in exchange for people's loyalty towards the society, they will be rewarded with a better future. The erosion of trust in institutions and public leaders is, in my view, one of the major causes for society, for that matter. It is also the foundation for productive cooperation in international politics. So, what can leaders do to gain trust? Be truthful. It's so ridiculously simple, and yet somehow we have all gotten used to the cynical idea that truthfulness is detrimental to successful political leadership. Now, truthfulness does not equal brutal honesty. Brutal honesty would lead to rather brutal lives. What truthfulness requires, in turn, is a basic honesty about why I want to lead, a basic decency about the means with which I exercise my leadership, and a basic transparency about how I reach my decisions. Truthfulness is a mindset rather than a set of rules. It is an attempt to be a leader who is first and foremost a human being. A human being with potential and with flaws. Exercising truthfulness is difficult more often than not. Being in the spotlight is hard. Openness is hard. In politics and in life, openness makes you vulnerable. And vulnerability makes you weak. But does it really? Doesn't it rather make you more perceptive, more creative, more able to understand others, and therefore more able to find solutions? Hasn't any society ever thrived on deception, division, or rigidity? Hasn't real and lasting human progress always been the fruit of being open? Some might say that it is naive to ask our leaders to be truthful. And yet we all, no matter what culture we come from, teach our children to be kind, to be honest, to be generous, to be attentive to the needs of others. These are values we try to instill in every child, qualities we expect from every child. Why shouldn't we be able to expect them from our leaders? We certainly shouldn't accept the idea that you have to be selfish, mean, or mendacious to be a leader. This doesn't mean that leaders have to be perfect. Imperfection is human. It is recognizing one's own imperfections that makes a good leader. Nelson Mandela, probably the greatest leader of the 20th century, said more than once, and I quote, "I'm not a saint unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying." End of quote. Keeping on trying, isn't that what leadership in this ever more complex world is all about? Maybe leadership in this 21st century is not all about giving the right answers. Maybe it starts with asking the right questions. After all, nobody knows exactly how to create the millions of jobs needed for the growing youth population in Africa. Nobody knows that exactly. Nobody knows exactly how to decouple economic growth from environmental pollution in Asia. Nobody knows exactly how to find the right balance between unity and diversity in Europe. The transformation of our societies and economies, which is inevitable if we want to meet the greatest challenge of humanity, eradicating extreme poverty and protecting our planet, will only be possible if there is not only resolve at the top, but also ideas from bottom up. Leaders then have to be learners. Leaders have to be listeners. And in this complex, interdependent world, we need forums in which these leaders can meet in an open, truthful way and learn from each other. It seems to me that the Ibrahim Governance Weekend, is such a forum. Congratulations. Haven't we all had enough of the formalized meetings where functionaries and dignitaries read preconceived statements to each other? Do we really still believe that this is how good ideas are born, how trust is built? I feel that this is especially true for the relationship between Africa and Europe. Sometimes these summits seem so formalized. It feels like one is watching a perpetual rerun of the same TV show. Hands shaken, statements read, fingers pointed only to hide one's own hypocrisy, communiques calling for strengthened cooperation nevertheless, and, excuse my sarcasm, Don't forget the obligatory action plan agreed at the end. Shouldn't we rather enable encounters of human beings in charge of leading their countries, sharing their visions, their possibilities and their limitations, listening to each other, trying to understand each other's perspectives? And yes, as a former president, I understand how helpful protocol and formalities can be when you are under pressure and want to avoid an international crisis by making a stupid mistake. But we have to be careful not to suck all the humanness out of our leaders, not to make them little robots, so stifled in their routines that real, new, fresh solutions become impossible. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, despite all the difficulties of our present, I'm not pessimistic. This is because I know many men and women all over the world, most of whom are ordinary citizens, many of whom are young, who have all the qualities we are looking for in a leader. You don't have to be in a formal leadership position to be a leader. Human history has known many moments when change happened, not because leaders led and people followed, but because people pushed forward and leaders followed. This is not a naive trust. This is not a naive trust in the wisdom of the masses, but a profound confidence in the ability of humans to strive for improvement, whatever their position is. The transformation we want to achieve will be pushed forward by countless and often nameless leaders on the ground, by ordinary human beings making the right choices in their daily lives, by men and women trying to be truthful, trying to be respectful of other people and of our planet, Amina. These people know if all you want to accomplish is preserving the status quo, then you are not a leader. A leader doesn't administrate the present. A leader shapes the future. You cannot lead without having a direction, without wanting to go somewhere. This is why I'm so profoundly convinced that the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change are the most important political frameworks of this century. We have a strategy for this century because these decisions, they give us direction in these very confusing times. They are both a source and a test of leadership. If we take them seriously, both on the top and on the bottom, then new trust can emerge. Trust in each other, trust in our democracies, trust in Africa, trust in the future. I thank you very much.
Truly, every time I hear that speech, which I've been lucky enough to do for a couple of times in the run-up today, I just get goosebumps. His absence is still felt, but the power of his words on power and the weight and wonder that comes with holding the trust and well-being of others still hit hard. And I suspect they will never lose their relevance. If anything, his words on truth are only becoming more pertinent. Well, let's now turn to a different kind of expression, one that speaks across borders and generations, music. So this evening's first performer, I was lucky enough to meet backstage for the first time just moments ago, and she's already stolen my heart. I have no doubt she will do the same to you. She's one of those African artists that is reimagining tradition through a modern lens, drawing on Morocco's rich musical heritage and blending it with contemporary sounds. Her work captivates the vibrant and evolving spirit of African creativity. It is my pleasure to introduce Sukaina Fassi and her band, Sidifta, Nabil, and Samad.
حاضن غرامه للقهر ما بغى يسلم وشد عليه بابه أجواره عليا محرم وأنا قلبي ما بغى يفهم حاضن غرامه للقهر ما بغى وشد عليه بابه يا هذا القلب كيف كفرتي وبقضاء ربي ما رضيتي وانت تسهر الليل ترغبه واذا الشي ما راح صليتي لو قلبك تهبه تايه ومعذب وانت عارف جوابه جاوبك بفصاحة وما كان يكذب صدقوا عنوان كتابه حتى دنيا هذا القلب ناوي تبقى تايه ومعذب وانت عارف جوابه جاوبك بفصاحة وما كان يكذب صدقوا عنوان كتابه قالوا كان نرجع بالزمان نترجى نعيش غرام وثان لأنه الفرح فاق الأحزان أنا تحت جناحه دفى قلبي بذاك الحنان وكان له إلهامه لو كان نرجع بالزمان نترجى نعيش غرام وثان لأنه الفرح فاق الأحزان أنا تحت جناحه دفى قلبي بذاك الحنان وكان له إلهامه معشوقي ما نزين وفتان لكن قلبه فسيح كيف الجنان الحلو وثماره ملء الشغف العطف والحنان ربي يحفظه لناسه معشوقي ما نزين وفتان لكن قلبه فسيح كيف الجنان الحلو وثماره ملء الشغف العطف والحنان ربي يحفظوا لنا سوق Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Andre. I wouldn't find a song with rhythms from the whole Morocco and Africa better than this one to dedicate to my mom and to all of you here tonight. Lovely to have you in Morocco. You are welcome, everyone. جودي يا ويا لا لا جودي يا لا لا جودي هايلي انتي لحبيبة ديالي جودي يا ويا لا لا جودي يا لا لا جودي هايلي انتي لحبيبة ديالي خلوها صحبان يا وقولي لي يا ويا لا قولي لي يا لا قولي لي يا وهيلي انتي لحبيبة ديالي وقولي لي يا ويا لا قولي لي يا لا قولي لي يا وهيلي انتي لحبيبة ديالي جودي يا ويا لا جودي يا لا جودي هيلي انتي لحبيبة ديالي نظرتك تحسني للمسكين والمحتاج انتي مالكة وإحسانك فوق راسك تاج نظرتك تحسني للمسكين والمحتاج انتي مالكة وإحسانك فوق راسك تاج نتمنى نوصلك لمقام المكي وتشوفي الحج وتدعي للرئيس لا لقوة مهيلي وهنا الفحص عمي وترجعيني يا سلمى وادعي للرئيس لا لقوة مهيلي وهنا الفحص يا أمي وترجعيني يا سلمى وادعي للرئيس لا لقوة مهيلي وهنا الفحص عمي وترجعيني يا سلمى ادعي للرئيس لا لقوة مهيلي وهنا الفحص عمي وترجعيني يا سلمى ادعي للرئيس لا لقوة مهيلي وهنا الفحص عمي وترجعيني يا سلمى. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be among all of you. I'm so happy to see my friends here. Thank you, sis.
Thank you so much. You know what somebody backstage said about that performance? He said that it's the kind of music that turns you inside out. To be honest, I'm talking to anyone who'll listen. No, thank you so much. It literally gave me goosebumps. Thank you so much. Well, I think that set us up nicely for our next speaker, who is someone whose leadership and voice have left a profound mark on global development, particularly on the eternal question of how best to finance inclusive, sustainable growth. She is a role model, a teacher, a leader, and one of the most senior African women at the United Nations. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations.
That was because Mo set me up. After Horst, Köhler, and Sakina, I didn't know what I was going to say, so that was my bit. But Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin first by thanking His Majesty, the Kingdom of Morocco, and the Mo Ibrahim Foundation for convening us once again in this great city of Marrakesh. This platform has become so much more than an annual event. In a world where clarity is often lost, what does true governance look like today? And thank you, Mo, for Horst's video. It was incredibly emotional. He read my mind, so now I'm going to read my speech. Governance must serve the people, not power. Even in the UN Charter, it says we the people. It doesn't say we the states. And so, Excellencies, we meet today at a pivotal moment. Mo, the UN is still standing. We're here, and we hope to be doing so in the decades to come. But there is a reality check. 80 years later, no matter the work that we have done, the lives we have saved, the resolutions that have gone on to serve many of us, it is time now for a reset. And I think that's what we're looking at, and we want to have that conversation with the world. We've got 5 years left to keep our promise on the 2030 agenda. And this year marks the start of the second 10-year implementation plan for Agenda 2063, Africa's blueprint for transformation. And those of you that were there, I know Carlos is here, he was instrumental in shaping that. When this was launched in the African Union Hall, Madame Zuma gave us a letter from the future, reading what she would expect us to have done. And I think, read that memo again, read that letter again. It still makes so much sense for us today. Together, these milestones have demanded urgency, action, and above all, leadership that delivers to its people. Yet we are gathering today in the midst of a turbulent global landscape, a world in crisis from every angle. The climate emergency, conflicts old and new, rising inequalities, our crushing debt, backsliding on human rights, and a worrying trend of narrowing civic space and democratic erosion worldwide. Across too many of our societies, the rule of law is being weakened, replaced by the rule of force. We are witnessing a world of growing impunity and raw transactions where leadership is increasingly unaccountable and the public trust is under strain. Africa is not immune to these pressures, but it is also not defined by them. In fact, I believe Africa is responding with agency, with determination, innovation, and visionary leadership. But it's not coming from the usual suspects. It's coming from our young people who are determined to make a difference and shape a different world. And that progress is being made. Across the continent, we see shining examples of where they have shown us what good governance should look like: a vibrant civic engagement, institutional resilience, and genuine socio-economic advancement. But let's be clear, the gap between what is possible and the lived reality is still far too wide. Leaders and institutions must be responsive to people and measured by their tangible impact in people's lives, not merely by their existence. And when governance falls short, we all know that it is often women and children who bear the greatest burdens, especially during conflict and crises. Yet time and time again, it is these very women who step up, leading peace-building efforts, rebuilding fractured communities, and holding societies together. Their suffering must be acknowledged. Their leadership must be celebrated. And where governance has failed to protect them, accountability must follow. Africa's economic transformation will not be a gift from the outside. It has to be kindled from within. And we know that there has been many old and African practice, and perhaps maybe that needs to come back to the center. Unlocking our inter-Africa trade, implementing the African Continental Free Trade Area are some of the things that we've put on the table. By adding value domestically and investing meaningfully in Africa's greatest resource, it is its people, but it is also its natural resource base. And all of that has to be resulting in decent jobs, jobs that give people a life of dignity. This must be a new era of trade and economy built on inclusion, youth-led innovation, and fair access to markets. And no conversation on governance is complete without Africa's greatest asset, its young people. And they're not waiting for permission. We've seen that in country after country across the world, but we have seen it in Africa. They're building movements, sharing innovations that are changing lives and leading by example. And they don't use the marches that perhaps you and I have done many a time and got into a little trouble for some of them. Today it's the new era of technology, so what they can do online comes out faster and more furious than we have ever seen. So we must stop treating youth as the future and recognize them as leaders of today. This intergenerational transition is already underway, and we must support it with the intent to accelerate it. And I'd like to acknowledge the wisdom and leadership of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Graça Machel, and Mary Robinson, and our two sitting presidents for the role that they have played in opening up that space to have that intergenerational conversation. But Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, none of this is possible without resources, the means of implementation. And today Africa is paying the highest price to borrow at a time when investments in development and resilience are most critical. If we talk about the prevention that we need, the prevention dividend that we need for our development, it will be in conflict, and that's development. Development is what we need to invest in. Yet these investments can't succeed in a vacuum. They require an enabling environment with strong, inclusive, and accountable institutions, the kind that we've envisaged in SDG 16, to deliver justice, to ensure participation, and to uphold the rule of law. This was perhaps one of the most difficult goals that we brought the world together on. We were always confident we would get goal 5 on gender equality, but we were not sure about the governance goal and the rule of law. And today, we can see without that we would have a very difficult time navigating some of the headwinds that we have in our countries. We need a system that supports public investment, protects fiscal space, and enables development, and that is sustainable, a system that delivers debt relief, that clamps down on illicit flows and taxes multinational profits fairly. Because development cannot be top-down, it must be rooted in people's agency and built on institutions that reflect their voice, protect their rights, their human rights, and serve the public good. And this is what leadership must look like in our time. The United Nations, yes, it's heavy headwinds with the United Nations, but it is a family made up of over 190 countries. And in those 190 countries reside our 8 billion population. What we have to ask is how representative is that institution of the needs, of the aspirations of we the people. But we do remain steadfast in the commitment to supporting Africa's development priorities, advancing frameworks like the SDGs and the Paris Agreement, operationalizing the Pact of the Future, and mobilizing resources through an SDG stimulus. And we will continue to work hand in hand with the African Union as we jointly implement Agenda 2063 and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Together, we are advancing youth empowerment, gender equality, economic transformation, and peace building. And we are ready to support bold African-led reforms rooted in justice, sustainability, human rights, and shared prosperity. Friends, let us try to meet this moment. Let us try to govern differently, with integrity, with inclusion, and with an intergenerational purpose. Let us reclaim governance in all of its complexity as a force for dignity, equity, justice, and a lasting peace. Let's act in ways that respond to people's needs, uphold their rights, and restore their trust. And I know that Africa is not waiting, and the world must make way. But perhaps let's be reminded by the words that open this, as Mo spoke to us, it is about peace and security. And that peace and security has to be recognized as the most important right that everyone has, to live a life without fear, to live to know that tomorrow may be a day, a new dawn, that one can reach one's aspirations. So let's try rising to that challenge over the next few days in solidarity and carry out these messages to each and every corner that we have come from and really gain the momentum to tackle all the possible opportunities we have this year and over the years together in solidarity, together for a better world, a world that we know that we have never had as many tools and resources at our disposal as we have today. And so, what would we say to Horst if we didn't deliver? Thank you.
Thank you so much for reminding us of the breadth of voices and experience that have to be folded in to what has to be done. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. Well, we now turn to a leader who's dedicated her career to diplomacy, cultural exchange, and international cooperation, values that are more vital than ever on the world stage. As Secretary General of La Francophonie, she's worked tirelessly to build bridges between nations and cultures and to elevate African voices on the global stage. I would ask you to join me in welcoming Her Excellency Louise Mushikiwabo.
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués
ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests,
cher Mo,
dear Mo,
my big brother,
Mesdames et Messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen, des deux continents, de l'Afrique et
both
de
continents,
l'Europe,
from Africa and Europe,
ensemble, rechercher
together
des solutions pour ce beau
decided to
continent.
seek solutions
Je vous salue.
for this beautiful continent.
Je tiens
I would like
tout
to
d'abord
greet you,
à exprimer ma
I would like
gratitude
for
à Sa Majesté pour
starters
ce beau message
to
qui
express
nous a
my
été
gratitude
livré
to His Majesty
peuple
for this beautiful
marocain,
message
pour
that
cet
was
accueil qui fait
expressed.
que nous sommes
And
ici
I
pour
would
la
like to
deuxième
also
fois et ce n'est pas la dernière
thank
fois.
the Moroccan people
C'est
for
un
this
honneur
warm
pour
welcome.
moi de
We've been
participer à
here
nouveau à
once
cet
before
événement
and we
qui,
will be here
depuis des
again.
années,
It's an
sert
honor
de
for me to be
phare
part of this
pour un
event,
dialogue franc sur
which
l'avenir
for several years
du
now
continent
has
africain.
been a key
Nous nous
event
réunissons
to
à ce que je
share
qualifierais de
the elements that
véritables
matter the most to
moments
Africa.
d'inflexion
We are here at a
décisifs
crucial
pour le
moment,
leadership mondial
a
et tout
decisive
particulièrement
moment for
africain. Cette
worldwide
fois-ci.
leadership and especially for
En effet,
African
les
leadership.
multiples crises
Indeed, the
auxquelles
multiple
le monde est
crises
confronté en ce
that
moment
we are currently
pourraient
facing around
s'avérer
the world
être
could
une
very
opportunité
well
de changement
turn
réel
into
pour
a
notre
true
continent. Ce
source of
moment et
opportunity
ces
for our
crises
continent.
pour
This moment
l'Afrique
and
et le
these
reste
crises
du monde
for Africa and
requièrent
for
un
the rest of the
leadership
world
exceptionnel,
require
un
a specific
leadership conscient
leadership,
des défis liés à un monde de plus en plus
leadership
complexe
that is
et
aware of
interconnecté,
the
un
complex
leadership
challenges
courageux,
that are interconnected,
capable
a
de prendre
courageous
des
leadership
décisions qui
that allows
s'imposent,
us to
un
make the
leadership
right decision,
légitime,
a leadership
ancré
that
dans
is
une
legitimate and
représentativité
that is deeply
effective
rooted in
de
an
ses
effective
membres, un
representation
leadership
of its
performant,
members, a leadership
synonyme
that is
de résultats concrets
performing,
pour ces
that provides
populations.
results and that means concrete
Comme,
results
Mo,
for its people.
Je
And
salue
just
Horst
as
Köhler,
Mo has done before, I would like
leader,
to
mais
salute
surtout un homme
Horst Köhler,
exceptionnel,
a leader,
pour qui
but
j'ai eu
truly a
le
great
bonheur
man,
de travailler au
someone I
Fonds monétaire
was
international brièvement.
blessed
J'étais
enough to
le
work with
patron
at
de
the
mon
IMF. He was my boss's
Mesdames et messieurs,
boss.
l'Afrique
Ladies and
n'échappe à
gentlemen,
aucune des crises qui touchent le monde aujourd'hui.
Africa is not
Elle en
exempt
est
from
même
any other
souvent
crisis
la
that
première victime,
are striking
alors
around the
qu'elle n'en
world,
est
and
pas
we
la première
usually happen
responsable.
to be the very
Les
first
défis
victim
auxquels est
when we do
confronté
not
le
stop
leadership
them.
africain ne
The
sont pas
challenges that
fondamentalement différents
African leadership
de
is
ceux auxquels
facing
est
are not
confronté le reste
necessarily
du monde.
different from
Néanmoins,
those that the rest of the
et
world is
c'est
facing.
là le premier
Nonetheless,
point que je voudrais
and this really
souligner,
is the first key
l'Afrique
point
n'a
I
pas
would like
encore
to
le rôle
underline, is that Africa
auquel elle a
has
droit
yet to
dans la
have the
gestion
role
des affaires
that
du monde.
it is
d'abord,
owed when it
la
comes
place
to
de
managing the
l'Afrique
affairs
dans
of the
le
world.
monde,
The place of Africa
dans un monde
in this world,
multilatéral,
in this
multiforme,
multilateral,
qui traverse une crise
multi-shaped
existentielle,
world,
mais continue
which
de
goes
laisser
through an
en
existential
marge les
crisis, but
affaires
that
du monde,
continues
un
to put
continent
aside
qui
the matters of the
continuera,
world,
qui
a
comptera
continent
demain
that
plus
tomorrow
de 2 milliards
would
d'habitants.
host more than 2
L'Afrique
billion people.
n'est ni un spectateur,
Africa is
ni un
neither a
figurant,
spectator,
ni
neither
un pion
a
sur l'échiquier mondial,
standby.
mais encore une
We are
fois,
also
tout
not
comme Mo
a pawn
lui-même l'a dit,
on
c'est
the
aussi
world
à
chessboard.
l'Afrique, à nous les
As
Africains,
Mo has said, it is up
de
to
nous
us
comporter comme tels.
to work
Les
together
premiers rôles ne
and
peuvent
be
rester à
able to
ceux
reach
qui
our
ont
goals.
mené le monde au bord du gouffre.
The
Notre
very first
continent
role
a la vocation, mais surtout les moyens
ultimately
de
is
devenir un
for
acteur
us to
majeur de
give
la scène
ourselves the
internationale.
means in order to
Ce n'est
become
pas
a
uniquement
actor,
une affaire
a
de
stakeholder
justice.
on the
C'est avant
international
tout une
scene.
question de
It's not just a matter of justice, it's
de
also a matter of
légitimité
credibility
et donc
and legitimacy.
d'efficacité du système
And as a result,
multilatéral
effectiveness
renouvelé
of
que
the
nous appelons
multilateral
tous nos vœux.
system,
Ma
the renewed
conviction
one
profonde,
that we are
mesdames et
all
messieurs,
hoping for.
est que
My
l'obtention
true
d'un ou
conviction
de plusieurs sièges
is
au
that
G20
the acquisition
ou au
of one
Conseil de
or
sécurité
more
des
seats
Nations Unies
at the
n'est pas
G20
une
or
fin en
at
soi.
the Security
Les bonnes
Council of the
idées ne
UN
suffisent
is
pas.
not really
Nous
an
devons nous
end.
doter de la bonne
The good
méthode.
ideas are not enough.
Parler
We
d'une
need to
seule voix
have
à
the right
54
method
n'est
and work
possible
together
que
as
sur un nombre
54
très
countries,
limité
and that
de
could only
sujets.
be possible on a
Identifions
very
donc
restricted number
clairement
of subjects.
ces
So let's
sujets
please
où nos
identify these
intérêts
subjects
convergent,
carefully
comme
to
le
find
changement
places
climatique,
where
par exemple, la
our
sécurité.
intentions are
Sur
the
ces
same
sujets-là,
in terms of
nous
climate
l'avons
change,
déjà
for
montré,
example, or
par le
security.
passé.
I believe in the past
Chaque
we have
fois que
demonstrated
l'Afrique est
that
unie,
every time
l'Afrique
Africa is united,
Et
Africa
sur
wins.
d'autres enjeux, reconnaissons qu'il
And
est
on
plus
other
pertinent d'agir
challenges,
à l'échelle
let's
peut-être
understand that
régionale,
it's better
car les
for us
intérêts et les
to
besoins du
act
Sahel,
on a
du
regional
Maghreb, de
level,
l'Afrique australe ou
because
centrale
the
sont trop
common
spécifiques,
objectives
voire
of the
parfois
Sahel,
même
Central
divergents,
Africa,
pour
or the
parvenir à
Maghreb
une
are in some
position
cases
unique.
too specific, or in some cases
En
even
résumé,
different,
parlons d'une seule
for us to
voix sur
find
nos
a unique
intérêts
solution.
communs
Let's speak together on common interest and support different actions depending on the different regions. This is the place of Africa in the world. Now let's discuss the youth, a demographic bomb. It is a genuine challenge for our continent, and it is something that I want to touch upon. More than 60% of the African population is younger than 25. These numbers are all known. Those are not casual statistics. Those are the warning signs of a major demographic overall. And we can clearly see a gap between the speeches and, on the other hand, the ability to give hope to this youth, which is facing an immense issue of unemployment, an education that in some cases is not adapted to the market of jobs. There is a sentiment of exclusion. A lot of countries use the best practices in terms of education, employment, and citizen participation for the youth, but these efforts are usually quite small, especially in an environment and at a time where it is easier than ever to reach out to these youth through social media. The International Organization of Francophonie that I lead has decided to put the youth at the heart of their action, not just as a target, but as a strength that can help us change the present and also the future of the Francophone world. As a summary, we have chosen to massively invest in this potential that is still today untapped, because we are building with this youth what will tomorrow structure our Africa. Economic and political governance, which needs to be reinvented, which is my third and last challenge that I would like us to discuss. That of legitimacy. At the world level, the trust in political leaders and institutions is clearly failing. Africa is not the only entity and continent that faces issues of governance, but the fragility of our continent, the low mobilization of our internal resources, and a strong dependency on foreign aid and high level of corruption make our countries even more fragile and expose our people to crises that we have discussed previously. Without governance, we have nothing. This is something that Mo mentioned someday. And finding ways to focus on accountability and general interest is a major challenge for our continent and for the world. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow's leadership is not defined from the top to the bottom. It is built brick by brick from the bottom and carried out by values that Francophonie, our organization, that this beautiful country Morocco is part of, continues to defend inclusivity, justice, dialogue, solidarity, and accountability. There are, ladies and gentlemen, the ideas that I wanted to share with you tonight. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. You know, some really powerful reminders there. Good ideas are not enough. What we need are good methods, and good methods that lift up our youth. Thank you so much for speaking with such conviction about the role that leaders play in equipping Africa to embrace and engage with a world that's becoming increasingly complex. Well, time now for our next speaker. They're tough jobs and they're tough times. And our next speaker has navigated both with dignity and impact, helping guide the world through some of the most complex public health challenges of our time, including overseeing the global response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, throughout his career, he has championed universal healthcare, internationally amplified African leadership, and pushed for collective action in times of crisis. So thank you very much, Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. We're really looking forward to having you share some of your insights and aspirations with us.
My brother Ibrahim, and as you said, Your Excellencies, brothers and sisters, I follow you. All protocols observed. First of all, thank you so much, Mo, for bringing us all together here, and also to His Majesty and Morocco for the excellent hospitality. And I would like to thank you for choosing the topic of financing the Africa we want for this year's Ibrahim Governance Weekend. That phrase, the Africa we want, is very significant to me personally. As you know, it's a catch cry of Agenda 2063, the 50-year development blueprint for Africa, which I had the honor to shape with Louise Mushikiwabo, Moussa Faki as foreign ministers, and I had the honor to be the chair of the 50th anniversary of the Executive Council. So it means a lot to me. However, the most recent report on the implementation of Agenda 2063 shows that despite some progress, our continent is off track on many indicators. And in the past 5 years, we have suffered two major setbacks. First, the COVID-19 pandemic. And second, sudden and steep cuts to aid that are causing severe disruptions to health services on which millions of people rely. As the report prepared for this conference shows, billions of dollars in aid has disappeared virtually overnight. The impact is severe. Life-saving medicines are sitting in warehouses. People are missing out on treatments. Clinics have closed. Health workers have lost their jobs. And health information systems and supply chains are breaking down. Although this is an acute crisis now, it's a crisis long in the making. Many health systems around the world, and especially here in Africa, have long suffered from chronic underinvestment. As a result, out-of-pocket spending is the main source of health financing in 27 African countries. In 10 nations, more than half of all health spending comes from out-of-pocket payments. In 2 of these, it exceeds 70%. At the same time, debt servicing costs in many countries restrict their ability to invest in health. Globally, in 2023, 3.3 billion people were living in countries that spend more on debt interest payments than on education and health combined. These conditions have contributed to heavy aid dependency in many countries, as we all know. Since 2006, aid has consistently surpassed domestic public spending on health in low-income countries. Much of this aid, however, does not flow through treasuries, but through parallel systems set up by donors. This makes forward planning and budgeting impossible. This deep reliance has created a deep vulnerability that has now been exposed. But although many countries are facing serious challenges, many African leaders have told me that they also see the current crisis as an opportunity to leave behind the era of aid dependency and transition toward sustainable self-reliance. And I'm very happy to hear this. And I hope this will be a consensus in our continent. And WHO is supporting countries to make that transition by identifying tools to improve efficiency and generate new revenue for health. For example, by introducing or increasing taxes on tobacco and alcohol through pooled procurement, public health insurance, and by using health technology assessments to ensure they get the biggest health benefit for the money. But the transition to self-reliance is about more than health. It's about every area of development. It's about creating a level playing field so Africa can compete fairly with the rest of the world. There are technical solutions that we need to put in place, including collective bargaining, strengthening the continental free trade area and increasing the intra-Africa trade, improved tax collection, and investments in job creation and manufacturing. Many speakers before me have said this, and we all are thinking, I think, the same way, because the solutions are the same and known. We also need to fight corruption and illicit trade, which costs the continent more than we receive from official development assistance and direct foreign investment. If you stop illicit financing, then that would be enough for both investment and development. But primarily, we need a change of mindset. Some people may not like to hear it, but it's true. We cannot look to others to solve our problems for us. As Africans, the responsibility lies with us to make the transition to a self-reliant future. The mindset of aid dependency has to stop. And the difference between crisis and opportunity is leadership from all of us. First, now is the time for leadership from governments to shake off the yoke of aid dependency and chart the path to self-reliance. Second, we need leadership from lenders in the form of concessional lending at fair terms. When African countries pay more to borrow than high-income countries, there is something wrong with the system. And third, we need leadership from generous donors, not to pay salaries and operating costs for health programs or others, but to build capacity so we can run them ourselves. We don't need support for pet projects cherry-picked by donors, but for national systems, national budgets, and national priorities in alignment with the Lusaka agenda and the principles of one plan, one budget, one report. WHO stands ready to support all countries and to work with all partners to turn this crisis into an opportunity. The choices we make now will shape the future of global health financing, and we must get it right. Because ultimately, health is not a cost to be contained. It's an investment to be nurtured, an investment in people, stability, and economic growth. But there is one thing that's even more fundamental to Africa's future than health. And I join this, my brother Mo, and that one thing is peace. The best medicine is peace. Without peace, nothing else will make a difference. In so many parts of our continent, the biggest barrier to development is conflict. Perhaps none is so destructive or so forgotten by the world as the ongoing civil war in Sudan. I visited Sudan in September last year, where I saw the effect of the war and met people who are paying the price. The following week, I was in Chad, where I traveled to the border town of Adre and met some of the 900,000 Sudanese refugees who have fled seeking security and food. I met mothers clutching their children who had walked for days to reach their border. They were hungry, tired, alone, afraid. They told us horror stories. Their houses were burned. Their crops were destroyed. Their cattle were stolen. They left their places empty. And where war goes, disease follows. And follows close behind. We're now seeing outbreaks of measles, malaria, dengue, diphtheria, and polio. All this in Sudan. We're responding to an especially bad outbreak of cholera with very high case fatality rates affecting every region. Thousands are dying. WHO started vaccinating last week, but without access, we can't reach those at risk. We need a ceasefire. Wanted to use this opportunity to allow our teams to reach the areas they need, to reach with vaccines to save lives. Peace is the prerequisite for health. Peace is the prerequisite for development. And peace is the best medicine. Peace is the prerequisite for the Africa we all want. A healthier, safer, fairer Africa. Thank you so much. Of course, I use Sudan because that's one of the worst crises as an example. But you know, our continent's ridden with conflicts. Again, the best medicine is peace. Some of you have asked me, how is WHO doing with the current crisis? I don't want to say more. As has been said, many speakers also said, we're trying the crisis as opportunity. We're trying to make the organization, WHO, to be more focused on its core mandate and more independent. And we're pushing ahead with that, and I hope the outcome will be better. I don't want to say more than this, but we will not waste this crisis. It's an opportunity to use. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ghebreyesus, for your work. It's deeply inspirational to see how hard you are working to find a silver lining out of difficult times. Thank you for reminding us of how all of our intention and talk of getting the continent back on track cannot happen without more to be done to shore up our health systems, and remembering the impact and the fallout and the communities on the front line of conflict across the continent, not least the country that is in the midst of the world's greatest humanitarian crisis. So again, thank you so much for all that you have shared and all that you have overseen in terms of the work that is essential to be done. Well, we are now lucky enough to hear from some artists from elsewhere on the continent. The second performance of the evening, which will offer up a rich banquet of African artistic expression. The Nigerian brotherly duo Kingsley and Benjamin, who revive and reinvent high life, mixing sumptuous golden era grooves with juicy contemporary cuts. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to hand you over to the Cavemen. Are you ready to go, guys?
You have to cry. Baby, you should know it's alright. Don't let this love fade away. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let your love be magical. Let me make it chemical. Oh yeah. If you be my baby girl, I won't be your baby boy. The mama la 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 la. Ya la ma mi la 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 la. It's your love away. It's your love. Na punjaje. It's your love na someone no one you can do double. Na la 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 you no bad. It's your love, Papa Monsieur. You know that. Why, love, baby, love. Why do I love? Can't feel love. Let your love be magical. Let me make it chemical. Yeah, yeah. Let your love be magical. Let me make it chemical. Bella mama le gana se la bon bella bella yo la ba. Bella mama la la. Sala la gana 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 la bella bella la. De la villa de
The song is called Osundu. Enjoy this one.
Ah
asunder, 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 yeah, asunder, 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 yeah, asunder, 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 asunder. Thank you very much.
That was amazing. Thank you so much to the cavemen. I might be oversharing, but just a few days ago, I twisted my ankle. I'm fine. I found myself completely having forgotten that happened whilst I was bopping away backstage to that absolutely transportative music. So I truly hope that you all enjoyed it as much as my slightly swollen ankle did. But I think that sets us up nicely for our transition into the next section of this evening's program. Our next guest joins us at a time when global partnerships are more critical than ever, as the world faces rising instability, climate and security challenges, and the urgent need to reshape financial systems. As the European Union High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, he's played a key role in helping the EU work ever closer with Africa, deepening cooperation, promoting shared values, and coming up with solutions that work for both continents. Please join me in welcoming to the stage His Excellency Josep Borrell.
Merci, Mo. Chers amis, Excellencies, merci pour me faire l'honneur.
Thank you, Mo, and your friends, your Excellencies. Thank you for giving me the floor among this bouquet of high personality.
Merci, Mo, aussi pour
thank you, Mo, also
mentionner
for mentioning President His Excellency Bazoum. Thank you for reminding this.
J'aimais bien Bazoum.
I really like Bazoum.
Un leader.
He was a leader.
C'était un leader qui m'a raconté
qu'est-ce
qu'il fallait faire
pour told me what to do to take a Niger out of underdevelopment, giving empowering women and especially young women to prevent them from becoming a machine of birth only aged 14.
Et c'est justement pour ça, parce qu'il avait une vision.
The reason why, because he had a vision. He knew exactly what he wanted to make Niger to be. And now we don't know where he is. For more than 2 years, he's in jail. But he is a leader, a real leader, someone who had a vision, who wanted to implement it. And he was requesting us, European, please help me, help us. We don't want our girls to be reproduction machines. We don't want them to be human beings giving birth to a child after another one. So he was a leader. Leadership is a controversial word. Sometimes there is too much. Our friend, German French said Führer is a big word in German, because a leader is a leader. The same thing in Spain with Franco, or in Italy with Mussolini. Sometimes we don't have, don't have too much leadership. In Europe, sometimes we say we need the leader, we need the law, we want someone like the law to push Europe forward. Where is the European leadership? I want a leader in Europe who takes up his head in front of all the massacres in Gaza and says no.
Parce que vous savez,
as you know,
Netanyahu est un leader.
Netanyahu is a leader.
Qui pousse
he's a leader
à un crime.
Who is making his country take crimes, war crimes, even more horrible than what Hamas did, and Europe remains mute.
And
I really want a European leadership that is able to say, no, this is not possible. It's true, we killed Jewish people many years ago, but this does not give the go to Israeli to kill thousands and thousands Israeli children. Children from Gaza. So, but that's not normal. We can also talk about the war in Ukraine. Putin is also a leader. Sometimes the leaders are very bad, the worst people that the people may have. And sometimes you say, no, we don't have enough leaders. In Europe, for example, we need a generation of leaders who understand that the word is no longer the word where in which the previous leadership was formed. The Europe that we built is declining, is vanishing. The liberal word has disappeared. Now it's the word of predators. Sorry, I will give that name, the word of Putin, Netanyahu, Trump. You saw my discussion with the discussion with the South African president and Trump. You see that colonial feature. What was the worst thing? That was the worst thing that the President Trump could do. He's a leader. He knows what he wants. He has a clear vision of the United States and the world. The worst thing that he did was not to increase the taxes during importation, but the worst thing was to cut overnight in the ODA, but he stopped 100% of the global ODA. This is a condemnation. Death to several people in Africa. People who would not have access to medicines, who won't have access to food, who won't have access to basic things in life. He is a leader, yes, of course he's a leader. But we have to fight against this kind of leadership. We cannot accept this kind of decision. It's true. They have the power to do that, like Netanyahu has the power to kill people in Gaza. But we have to fight against that bad and inhumane leadership that has appeared in the world. The new liberalism, the globalism, the global village, all this is over. The flat land is over. Now it's the word of predators. It's the word that does not take care of human lives. If you are not able to stop over the ODA, overnight the ODA, knowing that you will kill people who won't have access to food or the medicines to survive, you are more a criminal, worse than those who are throwing bombs by creating terrorism. Terrorist attacks, and this is what we have to say. And we Europeans, we have to understand and know exactly what we should do to stop this world. And we can do more. We can do much, but unfortunately, we are not doing anything. And we have to stop seeing Africa under the migration. For Europeans, they say, no, Africa is like a reservoir of people who want to come to Europe. Of course, there are many African people who want to come to Europe. They're taking risks. just to come to Europe for a better life. But Europeans should understand that Africa is not a reservoir of human beings who can be a danger for our societies. Africa is the future of humanity. And we have to fight for this future, not only because there are some mineral resources in Africa, of course we need that, but simply because if Africa and Europe are not able to create a partnership that can allow us to work together for a common future, Europe won't be able to survive. We won't be able to survive. The European civilization won't be able to survive because we are only 5% of humanity. And we are not reproducing. And we need the strength of African young people, more than selling some sacks in the corners, trying not to be arrested by the police and to be sent back to Africa. We need Africa, and Africa needs us. And that's why during my mandate I worked as much as I could to work so that Africa and or Latin America we can be a kind of a red screen of the European Union. It's true, we're talking about many deaths in Ukraine, but we're not talking about those dead people in Sudan. We are talking about that. And as you said, there are more dead people in Sudan than in Gaza and Ukraine. That's why we have to have a new glance at Africa. So the European leadership, the European leaders should understand what is happening on the other side of the Mediterranean Sea. So we have to fight for peace. We have to start not only from our borders, but not only we have to go beyond, avoid massacres of innocent people, those that we can see on TV, but those we cannot see. That's the reason why this meeting is very important, to talk about governance. If there was a minimum of good governance in the world, if there were only 1 inch of capacity of govern better the world, what is happening now in Gaza would not happen. And we would stop that massacre. The fact that those massacres are still in progress, it shows that the world does not have the right leadership to prevent the human beings fight against the others, and having the strength of the strongest people imposed on the weakest. That's why this meeting is very important. Thank you very much more for calling us here. Thank you for making those important people who spoke before me showed the will and the necessity to work hard to have peace and also to make other human beings to work together for a future, a common future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Borrell, for reminding us of some of the recent shifts in mind and deed, excuse me, that have led to some pretty stark outlooks for all of us moving forward. But also the hopeful note, the reminder that Africa is the future for all of humanity, and that shifts in mind and deed in terms of the relationship with the continent can only yield benefit for all of humanity. So again, thank you so much, Mr. Borrell. We'll now be hearing from a member of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation's Now Generation network of youth changemakers. Throughout the day, we've heard how young people are essential to conversations that have to be had. Well, we're now lucky enough to hear from Modupe Ige. She's a product strategist at Mercer, and she also supports African startups and pushes for more gender and diversity in finance. Modupe, really looking forward to hearing from you. Please join us.
Good evening, distinguished guests and esteemed leaders. I stand on all existing protocol. It is such an honor to stand before you today. being among change makers and visionaries that are committed to shaping the future of our continent. The honor, I can't express it. My name again is Modupe Oluwaige from the Now Generation Network. We like to call ourselves the youthful part of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, even though some of us don't exactly feel very young. I thought to wear a dress that represents where I'm from. So if you're still wondering, I'm proudly Nigerian. And I don't think that there's anything that I would say this evening that hasn't been said, because it's interesting, because everyone keeps saying the same things. Topics recurring from trust and leadership. And I sat here listening to everyone that has spoken, and one question kept coming to my mind. What is holding Africa back? This IGW has held for 20 years, and I'm sure a number of the topics keep coming up, and the question is, what is being done? Now, leadership is one of the things that have been recurring, and a number of indexes, AFDP reports, have stated leadership quality as one of the prominent challenges of Africa as a continent. But it's interesting from some of the conversations that we've had this evening that it is recurring, and it's not particularly an African problem alone. It's more of a global problem right now. And so the question is, what are we going to do from where we are? And how are we going to make these sort of conferences not just a tick box exercise, but an exercise where action starts to happen? And so when we talk about visionary leadership, I think one of the prominent people that come to mind is Martin Luther King, very popular for his I Have a Dream speech. And I'm thinking to myself, what is the African dream? How are we expressing that dream? And how are the youths feeling about the future of Africa as a continent? And on the continent, the reality is the average person is really not very hopeful. And they're thinking about how to practically leave the continent. And so we're starting to think that we need to see leaders that are very, very committed and driven to the growth of the continent, but beyond being driven, expressing that vision in a way that people are clear and can relate to that. But one of the things, I think as Horst Köhler said, is trust. There is a very deep and painful disconnect between the leaders that are representing the youth and the people that they represent. And I think that that gap needs to be closed. And how can we close that gap? I'm not going to stand here to act like I have all the answers, but I think that having action and going by bias for those actions, executing, and letting the people understand and seeing from the little actions that you take as leaders and government would show that commitment to the development of the continent. But then I think about my personal African dream, and I'm not only speaking for myself, I believe I speak for the Now Generation members as well. I think that my dream for Africa is a continent where the basic things are very accessible to the average person. Good roads, foundational education, healthcare, internet connectivity, and people can actually feel safe in their country. I think about an Africa where there is great connectivity, where someone coming to Marrakesh for IGW doesn't need to go to Doha first. I think about an Africa where I don't have to pay the same amount to go to Abidjan from Lagos as it costs me to go to Barcelona. I'm like, it's just literally like a journey. You're wondering how the costs literally tie up. There needs to be that. I'm thinking about an Africa where we are so strategically important to the global economy. There is innovation happening. Because of that, people are keen and drawn to learn our languages, Yoruba language, Zulu, Swahili, you name it, because there's a lot happening in the continent from an economic standpoint. And all of this being said, I think this takes us to the theme of this conference, which is financing the Africa that we want. All that dream would only remain a pipe dream if there's no money to finance that. And so hopefully from all the discussions that we start to have this week, there will be conversations that will be driven. But beyond even action, like I've said, we as Now Generation Network sat together through deliberations, debates, and we came up with some, solutions that we think, if implemented, will move the continent forward. And it will be written in a paper, and hopefully, we hope that in the coming IGW weekends, we start to see some of these solutions being implemented. I'm really looking forward to a future in the near term where some of these things we're talking about now are no longer on the table because they've been resolved. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, Modupe, for that call to action. And one thing that really struck me is, again, her highlighting that she hopes that things will no longer stay on the table, but that they will be acted on. And that ultimately is our goal here, that it's not just another talking shop, that we don't just exchange ideas, but that those ideas are fodder for making things happen to make Africa work. So, we're almost at the end of this evening. We've heard some of the amazing things that have been done, but also some of the leadership challenges with so many global repercussions. We've also touched upon some of the ways we can make changes that can deliver a better world and the best for Africa. How to cultivate and support leaders defined not just by their boldness or vision, but also by the humanity at the heart of their commitment to the continent's future. And that is already happening. We're all here, aren't we? In this amazing city, with open minds, excited hearts, and souls stirred by resolve. Africa's solutions lie not in distant promises, but in more of the talent, innovation, and determination of which we have glimpsed tonight. It's just the tip of the iceberg, and we have every reason to be hopeful. So, thanks to the work of the Mo Ibrahim Foundation, the Ibrahim Governance Weekend continues tomorrow with a full day of the hard work, the conversations, exchanging of ideas, and the commitment to action needed to make things happen. We're so looking forward to building on this evening's energy as we keep pushing for powerful change for the better. Ladies and gentlemen, personally, it has been such an honor to be here amongst you and to share the stage with so many breathtakingly inspirational people. We have a lot of work to do, but we also have so much to celebrate. And on that note, I will hand you back to some musicians who I think can help us start with the simplest part of celebrations. For the final time, and to wrap up the night, ladies and gentlemen, the Cavemen. Guys, good to go?
Why they do like you know they love? When you know say na me they love Africa. Why they do like you know they love? When you know say na me they love. Ooh, baby. Why now, my sweetie, sweetie? Ọ̀dọ́ yèrè, my sweetie, sweetie.
Why?
You make me go why?
Why?
You make me go why? You make me go why? You make me go why? Thank you. The second song is called Bena. Let's go. And I leave me go.
They got to be starting some. I say you wanna be starting something. They got to be starting some. I say you wanna be starting something. They got to be starting something. I say you wanna be starting something. They got to be starting some. Too hard to get over. Yeah, yeah. Too low to get under. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Too hard to get over. Yeah, yeah. Too hard to get under. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't leave me hanging. Now, the party's just getting started. Last time I'm before you. Please do take the opportunity to enjoy each other's company, to keep going on the amazing energy you've generated tonight, and to enjoy a drink and a dance. Because there is a reception that has been put on by the pool at the Movenpick, and we all very much hope to see you all there. Thank you all for being with us today, and we hope you enjoyed the evening.